Pinnacle and ritual weapons. A topic in Destiny that is honestly an infamous one, because the idea of them, at least both of them, have been around for years of the Destiny timeline. Pinnacle weapons were first introduced with the drop of Warmind in the form of Redrix's broadsword, which was the origin of Desperado. Then, as long as Crucible continued for at least the entire year of Forsaken, we got new Crucible Pinnacles that seemed to rule the game because of how effective they were. Among the likes of the infamous Mountaintop, Recluse, and the Revoker. And there were also other Pinnacles that came from every other activity along the seasons. We had things like Breakneck and 21% Delirium, Hush from Gambit, and Wendigo, Reservoir Burst one that I forget the name, Loaded Question, and one more Vanguard one that I seem to always forget that one. Oh wait, no, Oxygen SR3, that's right, the Scout Rifle, that was the better Dragonfly one. But those are the last of the, air quotes, Pinnacles that have come around. They had entirely unique perks that you cannot find on any other gun at the time. They were 100% unique, non-existent anywhere else. Very similar to the way Fate of All Fools was, except everyone had access to them. So with that, why is that a topic of discussion? Well, to think of it, not only has ritual weapons existed as well, where in the few seasons following the sunsetting of, or I shouldn't say sunsetting, well, the stop of creation of new Pinnacle weaponry, they swapped over to ritual weaponry, which is something sort of similar. If you recall, during Season of the Undying and Season of Dawn, they introduced a few weapons that were kind of infamous among the area. One that I could guarantee is one that you remember once I find it, is Randy's throwing knife. These were what the ritual weapons became. For 2 seasons, we actually got decent sets of ritual weapons. They were not as nearly powerful as Pinnacle, but they were still quite effective and offered unique combinations. Like, I imagine on a rapid fire frame scout rifle at the time, you wouldn't find such a thing like rapid hit and Zen moment. They would likely be in the same column and couldn't come together at once. And then you had other weapons that were like a personal favorite of mine that were sort of unique but just downright effective once I find it in things like Python. This one come with overflow, so it had an autoloader, 1-2 punch, as well as some of the just generally most solid PvE perks you can find. This one was a long-term use in my hand. I did not let this one go for a long time. It made me really sad when I had to stop using it because of sunsetting. But ritual weapons have made a return. Since the introduction of various seasons onward, we've gotten ritual weapons back. If you recall, Salvager's Salvo, a truly infamous and well-known, practically famous weapon in Destiny, is one of the most effective ritual weapons we've gotten, coming with unique combinations like Demolitionist and Chain Reaction and Ambitious Assassin Chain Reaction. One of the most well-used Pinnacles / rituals to date. And then we got things like following up Null Composure, which was another one that once I can find it, once you got this became one of the most well-known weapons and most effective weapons ever since fusion rifles came around, and became even more effective in the next following season when things like particle deconstruction was existed and pretty much buffed every fusion rifle possible. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, like I said, Pinnacles have been steadily reintroduced to the game. Desperado was only on Regix's broadsword / claymore, and then eventually they got put on weapons like the pulse rifle Messenger, which, sure, it's not Redrix, it's not exactly like it. If not, it's sometimes, in some occasions, more powerful because you can get them adept. Not to mention that in weapons like the new Duality Pulse Rifle from the dungeon, that can roll with Desperado and might be more lethal just because it is a stasis weapon and can, you know, effectively do some builds, if you know what I'm saying. But aside from that, there's been other sources of Pinnacle perks coming back to us. And the ritual weapon from Season of Lost Ascendancy, that got Explosive Light, which was unique to the Wendigo GL3, I think it was, which was basically you consume an orb of light and you load an extra damage shot into your weapon. And that has also come around with Witch Queen, where some grenade launchers also got access to Explosive Light. It wasn't nearly as powerful as it was before, but it was definitely still handy. Those so far have not been the only Pinnacle weapon perks to return as well, because with this most recent season, the Hollow Denial, the new Void Trace Rifle and the Machine Gun Fixed Odds have received Killing Tally, which is basically 21% Delirium's perk, and they haven't really been changed. They might have had the damage buff itself changed, but it functions almost exactly the same, and if not better, if you check my video of how it pairs with Active War Rig, which it didn't before, this is actually a very solid weapon. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, basically, a lot of majority of weapons that have been sunset have eventually been unsunset. A good majority of the ones like the Black Armory set, the Season of Dawn set, for some reason those have stayed sunset as of now. But a lot of various world item drops and various guns that have been sunset just because they fell out of way have come back. Like the moon weapons came back with Season of the Splicer. The Season of Lost, we got a good majority of just world drop weapons to come back. And there's a lot of things that Bungie has since sunset that they have brought back because they might not bring harm. And they did reintroduce ritual weapons. After Pinnacle weapons, they had 2 seasons of ritual weapons, but then for some reason decided that this was still a part of the Pinnacle power creep, and then they just stopped. So, why did they start up again with ritual weapons? They immediately, once the Beyond Light came around, they started with, I forget what the Beyond Lights was. It's hard to remember all these things, but then we had Salvager Salvo, Null Composure, Ascendancy. We even had the, what was it last season? Reckless Endangerment. And then we also had the one this season, Chain of Command, the Machine Gun. Not OP by any of them. Some of them are perfectly PvE balanced to be effective and, you know, worth it, but not useless. But then we have all of those weapons. We had 6 solid weapons that were definite contenders for some of the best weapons around, but that are sunset just because of the fact that they are. And for some reason not returning, even though that, because supposedly they weren't making any more ritual weapons, but then they started making ritual weapons once per season. So why don't we just say, hey Bungie, can we have these weapons back? Because even if they did do some reworking and they removed the OP role of rapid hit kill clip and maybe just made a rapid hit focused fury, which arguably may be better, hell, bring back those weapons that we had lost from all of these locations that were pretty solid. Like, thinking back to Edgewise, the old machine gun from the Vanguard playlist, this was the one that I forgot. This one, it wasn't one that I used a lot because I just liked 21% Delirium over this one. But it still had things like Feeding Frenzy and Field Prep, Demo, or Rampage. Either of these combinations were pretty much a solid 80% God roll. The main perks themselves might not have been great, but it was still a solid choice nonetheless that is almost guaranteed to drop you if you put in the effort. Leave it as it was or make some minor adjustments based on metas and what is truly effective on it. Please, just honestly, if Bungie could bring back those old ritual weapons they sunset just because they said they weren't making ritual weapons anymore, but then they made ritual weapons again, I would honestly appreciate it if I could have some of those guns back, because I was a big fan of Python, and realizing that we got ritual weapons back and just lost that ritual weapon, it kind of singed my hair a little bit, if you understand the saying. But that's basically me saying that I wish if they continue to add more Pinnacles and rituals, then we can get some old rituals back. With that, my name is Matt Scorpion, and I will see you in the next video.